And I'm going to. Okay, we were talking about the presentation before everybody joined, so I'll go back to the beginning. Hello and welcome to Adventures in STEM. I'm Michelle Jones. Most of the people that know me call me Shelley. If you're in the Coyote Creek District, you'll see me in the Coyote Creek District newsletter under the name Shelley. Boy Scouts of America has a, let me know if there's some issue with the presentation. When I'm presenting, I can't actually see your faces, so that's going to be a little bit of a handicap. Anyway, Boy Scouts of America has a long history in STEM. It's always been important to scouting. Even in the earliest days of scouting, the boys were challenged to learn astronomy, weather, Morse code, become trained in ecology, conservation, wildlife, and plant identification. And they designed and built things like log cabins, radios. They used math and engineering. And 85% of Scouts BSA merit badges actually have a component of STEM in them. And on June 1, 2012, the BSA launched the Nova Awards program, its STEM-related initiative. And it formalized and expanded the STEM content for all levels of scouting. It was fun with a purpose to inspire and encourage youth to pursue meaningful careers in STEM fields. And there was special recognition for participating in it. Dr. Bernard Harris became the national spokesperson. He's a medical doctor and was a NASA astronaut. And he was also a Cub Scout as a youth, so he has a heart in scouting. He said that America has long prided itself as a nation of dreamers, a land where everyone can strive for a better life. We mustn't lose the will to pursue daring new goals because our future depends on it. And here's a fun fact that Brian Bailey, who you just met, told me about today, that a portion of the pilot program for the STEM program was right here in the Silicon Valley, and it began in January 2011, before I joined the scouting program. And his two sons each earned Nova Awards in the pilot program. And the award presenters, they were presented the award at the national meeting in San Diego. And the presenters were the BSA Chief Scout Executive, Bob Mazuka, Bernard Harris himself, and the BSA President, Rex Tillerson, CEO of ExxonMobil at the time. So that was pretty exciting for the first Scouts. And they also had a ceremony, Brian said, here in the Silicon Valley, where they got to meet Steve Wozniak, who was one of the founders of Apple. So that's a very cool experience for those Scouts. The BSA STEM Nova and Supernova Awards have links to the adventures for Cubs and the merit badges and fields of interest for the Boy Scouts there, for Scouts BSA, and fields of interest for venturing. And I'll talk more about that later. Each level of scouting has its own Nova and Supernova awards with requirements that are age appropriate. And the Nova awards require completion of STEM-related adventures, merit badges, and activities. And they're not required for any award outside the program. It's self-contained. And here's the pictures of what the Nova Awards actually look like. They specialize in particular science, technology, engineering, and math disciplines. The first one, you get the patch, and then following subsequent awards are the pie pins that you pin onto the patch. And the Supernova Awards are more in depth, and they require the completion of one or more Nova Awards before you can begin. And they require more detailed independent study, including a project of some sort. And they're required, and reports are also required for the Scouts BSA and Venture Scouts Supernovas. And on the far right, you'll see that the Venture Scouts and Scouts BSA actually merge for the top award of the Albert Einstein Award. And I'm working with a Scout in Troop 201 right now. That's his goal, is to get that one. And he's now completing the Thomas Edison Award, which is the second in the series for Scouts BSA. And there are two additional STEM programs in scouting. The first one is called STEM Scouts, and this was the advertisement for it. After a successful pilot in Knoxville, Tennessee, they expanded the program to 12 additional councils in 2015. And it was in our council, here in Milpitas, we had a lab that was associated with the same facility that had PAC and Troop 92. But unfortunately, it appears that COVID really hurt the STEM Scout program. I think it was intended to be a hands-on type program where they built things, and I think that really hurt during COVID. I tried to find the nearest lab just because I was curious, and the closest one I could find was over 700 miles away. In fact, I think it was in Texas. So I think this program is going to maybe take a while to come back, and I hope it does, because it's got a niche. And the other program is Exploring, and I believe somebody gave a presentation on that on Saturday at the in-person program. And one of those options is the engineering and technology portion. And one of our scouts in Troop 170 went to an Exploring event that was held recently online. It was called the Build Environment Program. And in the meeting, they talked about architecture, construction, facility management. He learned all about blueprints and a lot of things associated with civil engineering. And I asked him what he thought of it afterwards, and he said, "Oh man, it was awesome. He just loved it. And he can't wait till they do the next program." Associated with that is Learning for Life Engineers in Aerospace called LEAP, and that's hosted by the Exploring Program and Lockheed Martin Space Volunteers. And we just had a meeting for that. I went to it on Wednesday with the same scout that went to the other program. And the Lockheed engineers came in and talked about their different things that they've done during their careers and answered questions for the explorers about how to do careers in aerospace. So my personal adventures in STEM, on the top right, or top left rather, you'll see a bunch of Webelos looking at a surveying instrument. The gentleman to the right of that is our assistant generator, Robert Lay, and he is a civil engineer. So he and his coworker brought out some instruments for them to learn how to do surveying as part of their STEM program. It wasn't part of earning the Charles H. Towns Award, which they were working on at the time, but it was just a fun thing that we wanted to do to expose them to a different part of STEM. The picture on the bottom left is the same guys actually working on the Charles H. Towns Supernova. In this case, we borrowed a vacuum pump from a mechanical engineering friend, and we performed what's called the triple point experiment, where you pull a vacuum on some water and boil it till it froze. And you can see the picture, the graph there of the triple point. And we had a good time that day. And we celebrated the end of our day by doing our favorite, which is called Coke and Mentos. And you'll notice there's a gadget on the top of the bottle that I bought on Amazon. The first time I tried doing that, I got a face full of Coke. So I learned very quickly that you need an apparatus to load all 6, and then you pull the plug and let it go. BSA STEM and me, the beginning. I became a Tiger Den leader when my son joined a pack in pack 92 actually, in fall of 2012. And when I joined, I had no knowledge of the Cub Scout program, no family history in scouting. So I was coming in cold turkey. I learned as I went along. I experimented a lot to figure out what worked and what didn't work. Our pack required all of the den leaders to finish the rank requirements for the big blue and gold banquet in February. And the pack meetings continued till school let out for the summer break. So that left us with 3 months as den leaders to fill with something other than rank advancement. And fortunately, back in those days, they had belt loops and pins that we could do, but that wasn't really enough in and of itself. So I'm a guidance, navigation, and controls engineer at Lockheed, and my husband is a mechanical engineer, and as I told you, the assistant den leader is a civil engineer. So we're all big STEM fans. And in the fall of 2013, I heard about the BSA STEM Nova program. And there's a picture of our wolf den in 2013 with our den chief and 12 guys. And you can see they're a handful. I don't know how many shots it took us to get a picture that was even that good. So the adult leader training for the BSA STEM Nova program, I enthusiastically signed up for a class because I wanted to learn about the program and get trained. And one of the other leaders said, "Why you? You're not special. We're all engineers here." And he was right about that. being special is not required for this program. Being an engineer is not required. It just takes getting involved and a desire to help. And time and willingness are what matter most. Under all circumstances, you have to remember to have the two leadership and never meet one-on-one with a scout. And online training is available just like it is for all the other Scouts BSA positions. And once in a while, if you're lucky, you can get it in person like I was able to years ago. And here's where the training is. If you go to the my.scouting.org, if you go to the catalog and select STEM, it'll pop up. And you can see that there are 3 classes that talk about the program in general and about being a counselor and a Supernova mentor. And as that previous slide showed, there are 2 adult roles. You can be a counselor or a mentor. And counselors can be any adult interested in supporting Scouts through Nova activities. And I'm going to bring up the chat. Okay. Counselors listen to the Scout. They discuss what the Scout's learned working on the Nova Award, and they ask questions and they verify that the Scout's actually done the work. And mentors, on the other hand, serve as guides to completing the Supernova because they're way more involved. They should have some training in one of the STEM areas as well as experience. And guiding Scouts includes evaluating their independent activities, providing suggestions, and you'll see later on when I talk about my Scout in Troop 201, and overall helping the Scout learn something useful from their efforts. And the counselors and mentors are registered with the council with youth protection training. There's no registration fee. That's the good part. It's just like merit badge counseling. It just takes a simple application. Let's see here. Okay, so some thoughts on the BSA STEM Nova program. And how you use the program is going to be unique to you. It's going to depend on your own personal experience and your interests, and those are your Scouts. And also what resources are available to you. Yeah, learning and fun happen in many different ways. You can use your imagination and your own life experiences, and the resources from your work, your coworkers, whatever freebies you can get a hold of, matching gifts. And you can ask your pack, troop, crew parents to contribute to the fun by sharing their resources and their talents. And here's a picture of all of my Arrow of Light Den in 2017. There were 4 boys that joined late in the game and weren't able to earn the Supernova. And here's the 7 of them that earned the Supernova Charles H. Towns. It's easiest to earn the Charles H. Towns Supernova if you do it as a 2-year program, because it fits in with the adventures that go with both of the years, but it can be done. One of the boys there actually was with our program only 1 year and did manage to finish it. So for the Cub Scout Webelos Nova Awards, they're divided into 4 areas that you can see on the page here. And there's a great summary in the bottom 2 links that goes through and talks about what the highlights of, and gives you a little bit more details about what each of those is about, so you can see which one you might be interested in pursuing. They're great resources. And the Cub Scout Webelos Supernova Awards, it's not required, but they highly recommend that the Cub Scouts and Webelos earn at least 2 of the Nova Awards before they work on the Supernova. And the 2 gentlemen that the awards are named after were both Nobel Prize winning physicists. And one was famous for discovering the iridium layer and the theory of mass extinction of dinosaurs caused by an asteroid or comet colliding with Earth. And Charles Towns was well known for his work in masers and lasers. So now I'm going to tell you about some of the ways I've had fun with STEM. And this can apply in general to packs, troops, and I don't know about the venturing. I haven't worked as much with venturing, but packs and troops can do these kinds of things. During COVID, my son's patrol, we did 2 of the Nova Awards. So anyway, the Nova Awards, they all require an hour of reading or watching a STEM-related show. And I'm a huge Mythbusters fan. They have a lot of great options. You can tailor it to your age group. and what episodes they might relate to. For the Wolf Den, we did the Lego ball episode, where they took thousands of Legos and built and tried to roll an 8-foot diameter Lego ball. And they also did a Hot Wheel coaster race, where they built an actual quarter-mile downhill Hot Wheel track and coasted a sports car next to it down the hill to see which would get to the bottom of the hill first. That was a fun episode. And there's also PBS Nova with lots of great episodes and short videos. And as you can tell from the picture of the Wolf Den, I split up the hour into 15-minute sections because I knew they wouldn't be able to sit for a whole hour, even if it was cool stuff. And this is details on the Alvarez Supernova. And you can see that the adventures like Make It Move and Forensics are included as part of the award. They work them into it. And I also I put on the slide what the options include. Like option 1A, B, you see geometry, where you select a simple shape or figure and you observe the world around you for a week, and you keep record of all the places you see that shape and how it's used. And they have you down in 2B predicting the probability of a plastic bottle landing on its top, bottom, and side. So they're learning about different aspects of STEM. And they also learn more interesting facts about Luis Alvarez and other scientists, and they get a chance to talk to their teacher about why science and math is important. And they do an experiment, and they also get to visit with someone who works in a STEM-related career. It's a lot of fun. And the nice part about this during COVID was this was something that the PACs could continue doing. And I worked with PAC 110 during COVID, then they were each doing it on their own at home. And Charlestown Supernova, this is for Webelos. And the Webelos can use up to 4 of their electric adventures. And when we started our first year of Webelos, I specifically picked what adventures that we would be doing to make sure we were doing ones that would feed into the Supernova, so we could kind of get a twofer out of the deal. And the requirements are designed so they can be done individually in a group. We did it together as a group, but PAC 110 did it as individuals working at home during COVID. So it works well either way. And you'll see coming up some examples of the PAC 110 kids at work doing electric circuits and talking about what they were doing. And in my group, we also did option 2B, which is to launch model rockets, which was a lot of fun. And you can also invite experts to your meetings. Lunar is the national unit of, the Livermore unit of the National Association of Rocketry. I'll get it right. They brought rockets. The president of Lunar happens to be a coworker of mine. So he brought rockets, big and small, to our PAC meeting once to talk about model rocketry. And the Cubs really enjoyed it. And that's something a scout troop would also really enjoy. The ham radio club also came and demonstrated ham radio for us. And for the engineering adventure, some Lockheed engineers came and they brought a 3D printer along with some examples of things they 3D printed. And it just so happened we had good timing. They had just had a egg drop contest at Lockheed, and they brought along some contraptions that they had 3D printed to protect their eggs during the egg drop. So it was kind of fun. And you saw the surveying that was arranged by our assistant den leader in the other picture, and the vacuum pumps. Another thing we did during COVID is I worked for 7 years at the Advanced Technology Center in Palo Alto, and the VP at the ATC, one of the VPs, is Steve Frick, who is a former astronaut, and he's now, so I was able to contact him and ask if he would be willing to come out and talk on Zoom, and he was willing to come out and spend an hour. We got a bunch of troops together in the Coyote Creek district, and about 100 kids got to listen to him talk about his experiences as an astronaut. And there's a good chance that probably most of you know people that have done really interesting things in their life, maybe not astronauts, but they've done other interesting things. And they make inspiring speakers to come out and talk to your pack or troop or to get a group together. And another thing I did when we were in a pack is I had scientists of the week and could invite coworkers or friends to come in person or record a message, or I would just put together a slide to introduce them to a different field of STEM that they hadn't heard of. And we went to a lot of museums and exhibits. And part of that was related to the STEM program, because that is something that they want you to do for the Novas and Supernovas. I watched the Tech Museum temporary exhibits for possibilities that I thought might interest them. For the and one we went to was Mythbusters, and we also went to Star Wars when they came through the Tech Museum. And one that's maybe not quite as well known, and I haven't checked to see if they're back online after COVID, is the Intel Company Museum in Santa Clara. We went there and they put together about an hour program teaching the kids about electronic circuits using snap circuits, explaining how the circuits worked and why. And then they took us on a private museum tour. Now, another place we went was Computer Museum in Mountain View and the Gem and Mineral Show kids area, which is interesting. And it also feeds into some of the Cub Scout adventures. Chabot Planetarium, I've stayed overnight on the Hornet 3 times now. Once when my son was a wolf cub, and then we went back when he was an AOL den, and then we just went back recently with him and the troop. And each time I've gone, I've learned different things and seen different things, and I never get tired of it. Another thing you can do is go to the lunar launches, which are at Snow Ranch in the winter months when there's not fire danger in the Central Valley, and watch them launch the big stuff. They have huge rockets out there that they're setting up. They go up, I think their ceiling is like 10,000 feet. And you can launch small rockets out there as well. Another fun thing to do is the Reed Hill View Open House and the Hiller Aviation Museum, which has a number of merit badges that they offer. And there's plenty more ideas. I have a couple of links that are huge numbers of ideas of things that you can do. So the Junior Ranger program is another thing that I've always been a fan of. My son and us, our family, we go to a lot of national parks, and I would go to the Junior Ranger programs to pick up ideas. And one idea I picked up was what I call the water table experiment. And in the water table experiment, I talked about the Ugalala, I think that's how they pronounce it anyways, the big aquifer out in the Midwest. And talking about why the water table goes down. And I took sponges and I cut them into different sizes and filled a big bucket with water. And they would take the smallest sponges first to represent drawing a little bit of water when they were first getting settled in that area. And you just had a number of small wells. And you could see that there was very little impact on the water table. And then you gradually increase the size of the sponges to show the impact of a much larger population of manufacturing, bigger farms, and so forth. And you can see the level in the water bucket just go down. And it's a good illustration for them. Another one that we did is called the water cycle lesson. It's called Incredible Journey online if you look for it. And basically you put together some dice, I think, and there are 6 different things six different places that the water goes in the water cycle. The water can be in the ground, in an animal, a river, the clouds, the ocean, a lake. And as they roll these great big dice, they move from station to station. And as they move, they get beads on a pipe cleaner. And they go around until they fill up their pipe cleaner with beads, and then they can see how much time they've spent as water going through the water cycle. And they seem to have a lot of fun with it. And Mount Madonna also, at least before COVID, had ranger programs, if you call ahead and ask. We spent some time with a ranger putting together mobiles with different plants. They had laminated pictures of various plants at Mount Madonna for us to look at, and the kids could touch and feel the leaves and see what they look like. And we also went to Don Edwards' youth program in El Viso and walked around on the levees, and the docent talked to us about things that go on at Don Edwards and the ecosystem there. And another thing we started doing in our Tiger Den year actually was we participated in rocket launches. And even the Tigers can do rocket launches if you kit them out very carefully. I broke it down into very small pieces, so we just did one tiny thing each week, and in a couple months' time, the rockets went together, and each one of them actually built their own rocket. And usually the parents are there for the really young ones like that, so the parents were helping them put them together. And as they got older, then they were able to get more independent, and we went to different models of rockets. And the unfortunate thing with the rocket launches is that we used to do those at Google, at Moffett Field, and when Google bought it, then Google pretty much brought an end to the rocket launches that Lunar used to hold monthly. There were as many as 300 kids that would come out every month to Moffett Field to do the rocket launches. And when they shut those down, it took away a huge venue for kids in the Bay Area to learn about rocketry. Lockheed still has a yearly annual event on the Lockheed property, and I'm not unfortunately, the ball field where we used to have it is being sold, but I'm hoping that we'll find another location on Lockheed property to do it later this year, now that COVID's easing up. And the picture of the far right on the bottom is one of the scouts from Troop 170, the same guy that likes to go to the exploring program, and he's probably holding 2 rockets that he made. And I hope everybody's still with me. I can't see you. So anyway, for geocaching, that was another thing that, another STEM activity that I have found to be a lot of fun. For geocaching, you can make geocaches and learn about GPS. And my goal when they were in their Wolf Den year was to have them make and hide geocaches for each of the guys. And we had 14 at that point. So I decided during the summer that I would test it out with the neighborhood kids and see how well the idea worked. And they painted the jars camo. We sold them with trinkets in a log. And we thought, okay, we're ready to go here. But I had a learning curve. Geocaching, setting up geocaches was a lot harder than I thought. I had to set up an account and register each of the geocaches. And they have to be 1/10 of a mile apart. And this is an urban area. There's a lot of geocaches. My area, Milpitas, is absolutely chock full of geocaches. It's maybe a little emptier now, but at that time, there was a geocache every 1/10 of a mile. And it was very hard to find places to put them that were safe and on public property and met all the requirements. And I had a terrible time just finding 4 places, and 14 places was absolutely impossible. So I was kind of disappointed. The idea wasn't going to work. So the 4 geocaches, yes, we could get those to work. So since the kids had made them, we went ahead and put them out and waited to see if somebody would discover them. And that's a picture of my son. One of the caches is named after him. It's called Cub Isaac, and Cub Isaac is still out there in Milpitas. And we had a lot of fun with it. We hid them, and we got our first FTF, which is first to find. And it happened to be 2 brothers. One was a Cub Scout, and one was his big brother who had just joined a troop. And 4 years later, we joined Troop 170 in North San Jose, and we actually met them. So that was pretty fun. But back to my den, I still wanted to do something related to geocaching. So I came up with the idea of using trackables. And trackables are game pieces that move from geocache to geocache. And each of the Cubs picked out a trackable, we purchased them, and we activated them using geocaching.com. And in our den meeting, we had each of the Cubs give the trackable a short biography that we could put with the trackable. So it made them seem a little more special. And this one was about Jojo, who happens to be the same age as the Cub Scouts at the time and liked to eat corn dogs. So my goal was to put a US map on cardboard and put pins where all the trackables went. And well, that didn't work so well because immediately the trackables went everywhere. And 7 years later, a couple of them are still traveling. I still get messages from one that's in Germany. I get like almost every week, the trackable will move somewhere in Germany. And we had one of them that went to the Cape of South Africa, and it says it went 279,000 miles. I'm questioning that, but that's what the trackable claims. So the rest of the story is 3 of the 4 geocaches are still operational, and they've had probably by now 1,000 visitors, and they've been stolen at least 10 times. I've replaced them a bunch. Isaac, my son, is now teaching orienteering and GPS at our Troop 170, and the PAC-92 graduates have also taken the geocaching merit badge. So there's our test team with their wolf uniform, and then as Webelos, we actually did go geocaching to go find other people's geocaches. And then there's my son teaching map and compass and GPS skills in his creeper hat. So my lesson learned from my little experiment with geocaching was to be sure and test things ahead of time. And the Cub Scouts can learn to geocache and enjoy hunting for them. Yeah, another thing we did, my son and I, with PAC 163 is we hid candy caches and then gave them the equipment and had them find those. So you can use temporary caches and make it fun. And you can also find real ones. If you look for ones specifically that are easy to find, or for Cub Scouts and maybe a little bit more challenging for Scouts, it can be a lot of fun. And trackables are a lot of fun. Like I said, still got some of them out there 7 years later. And it's a good stepping stone towards GPS and orienteering. So here are a few videos this is some Cub Scouts from PAC 110, and this was done during COVID, so they're at their home. And we'll see if we can get them to play here.
I made elephant toothpaste. What I used was hydrogen peroxide, yeast, and dish soap. Done. The hydrogen peroxide broke down into bubbles when the yeast was added, but the Dawn soap kept the bubbles together. So it squirted out like toothpaste. So big that you can use it for an elephant. I totally recommend this experiment.
And she was, I think she was a bear that year, and this is her older sister.
I made a series circuit, so here it goes. The light bulb's glowing. And yeah.
And they were doing this all from home, and I was buying off their requirements by watching their videos.
So this is my first parallel circuit that I tried to make with the breadboard. So as you can see, when we put these two, only the 2 green ones glow, right? Eventually, after we studied the board, we came to the conclusion that the blue must have a higher resistance than the green. So if the current was coming, it wouldn't go through the higher resistance, but go through the lower resistance. So that is why the blue doesn't glow. This is the working circuit that we made. It's a parallel circuit, which means the current flows through here and gets equally dispensed here, here, or here. So as you can see, if I turn it on, all of them glow.
Yeah, so anyway, I just put a note in chat, so hopefully you're all still with me. I can't see I can see your comments, but I can't see your faces while I'm talking, so sorry about that. And the gentleman on the right went to do an experiment for his Charles H. Towne supernova, and he said, can I make a hologram at home using household materials? And it's not actually a hologram. It's the device he made is actually known as what's used for a Pepper's Ghost trick, used for the movies, but it's still very cool. And this is the design for what he put together. For his experiment. And he says, yeah, I can do this. So there it's all built and you can see it. And I'll play a video of him actually demonstrating his experiment. So yeah, his conclusion was, yeah, it works. I can make a hologram Pepper's Ghost trick device using only household items. And so he decided to take it up a notch, and he said, I'm going to go further and make a hologram of myself talking. So he said, I need an iPad, a transparent pyramid, PowerPoint, and a video of myself. So here he goes.
Things. Hope you're doing good today, so that we can terminate your planet and enslave all your people. Good day. Bye-bye.
I love his sense of humor. So now we'll move, I'll transition into the Scouts BSA Nova Award program. The Scouts BSA program has its own set of Nova Awards, as you might expect, because they expect the Scouts to be much more sophisticated and to be able to capable of doing bigger and more interesting things. Maybe not more interesting, but a little bit more complex. And here's an example of a Scouts BSA Nova. This is one that my son's patrol did during COVID. It's called, we did it online. It's called Up and Away. And in this case, because it's a Scouts BSA Nova, they have to do not less than 3 hours of reading or watching documentaries. So they take it up a notch from what they do with the Cub Scouts. They expect them to have a better ability to concentrate and to learn things more in depth. So, and the second requirement brings in the merit badge program again. And you can see there's a pretty good range of merit badges. And then also they want you to complete 2 activities. And the first one, we chose to do the first 2 because we could do the plastic tube easily. We could display it on a phone and we could display it on Zoom so everybody could see it. And we also did the terminal velocity on different planet calculation. That was another one that was easy to do online. So for the requirement 1, we watched several Mythbuster episodes again, but we took it up to more of a high school level because these were all high school students. So we watched the episodes where they were trying to make a swing do 360, how many balloons it took to lift a child, can you float a sunken boat by injecting it with ping pong balls, and what happens if you shoot bullets in the water, and Coke and Mentos, of course. And then they were required to put together some questions, and you can see the questions there and read them if you'd like. The questions on the videos that they were watching to kind of see how well that they were digesting or understanding what they were listening, and they were paying attention. And they came up with some pretty good questions that we could discuss together. So then moving on to 3, since they each had enough merit badges to cover number 2, we went on with the corn syrup and with the velocity on the different planets. I won't show you the corn syrup one since it's a pretty simple experiment. But requirement 3B, to calculate terminal velocity on different planets, they have a worksheet you can download to help you to do the activity. And they want you to calculate your velocity on Mars, and we did ours also on Earth and compared the 2 values. And I didn't show you all of my slides that I put together. I went through slide by slide by slide, explaining all of the different parts of the equation that go into determining what terminal velocity is. So this is one of the 8 slides I put together to help explain the concepts so they would understand what all the pieces of the equation were there for. And after explaining all of the pieces of the equation, so we go, ta-da, here's the equation. And using my son as a typical scout, we figured out if we laid him out flat, like sometimes skydivers like to do when they're doing motions or doing fancy patterns, or if they put themselves head down like the picture on the right, what difference does it make on the terminal velocity because of the different surface areas? And we came up with the numbers of 62 miles per hour or 116 if he's got his head down. So that was kind of fun to figure it out. And we actually matched some numbers that we found online, so we felt pretty good about that. And then we repeated the experiment to see what the difference would be on Mars. And you can see the numbers are substantially different, and why it would be so difficult to bring in those rovers that go to Mars, because of the terminal velocity speeds are so much greater. And then the final thing we did for 4, since we were during COVID, we couldn't actually go, a lot of museums and things were closed. So we did number C, which was to take an online tour of a wind tunnel facility. And we managed to find some really good wind tunnel tour videos that we could watch and enjoy together. And that's pretty much what is involved in the Novas. The other Novas are fairly similar in their complexity. They're very different. And they give a wide variety, so you can try to find things that your particular group is interested in. So going into the supernovas, the supernova, there are 2 paths, one for venturing and one for scouts. And then, like I said, at the end, they merge, and both the scouts BSA and the venturing will end up with the Albert Einstein Award. And I have the scout now that's working on the 2nd Thomas Alva Edison silver medal. He's just about finished with it. He's so close. And he's already finished the Bernard Harris one that you have to finish first. So his ultimate goal, he's a sophomore in high school, is to finish the Dr. Albert Einstein gold medal. And I have a good reason that I think he will make it. And this is what the Thomas Edison Award is that he's working on, what it looks like. And the first requirement is that you have to earn the Bernard Harris Supernova, which he did with a previous mentor in 2019. And then he completed another, talking to my husband, sorry about that. Anyway, he completed another award for a total of 4 of them that he has to have finished for this supernova. And just by coincidence, the one he did was Up and Away, which he completed in 2020. And he also earned 4 supernova approved merit badges from the list provided. And he listed, these are listed here, the ones that he chose to do. And once he finished that, then he has to also do 2 additional supernova activity topics, one from each of the STEM areas that he didn't complete in the previous supernova. So they want them to have, at the completion of the Edison supernova, they want them to have a supernova activity in each of the 4 STEM areas, which is really a great thing. So the 2 he chose to do for this one is to build and test high performance paper gliders, and also to research about energy technology. And he was also working on this during COVID. And he also has participated, number 5, he had to participate in a math competition, science fair or something. He's participating in Science Olympiad, so that helped to fulfill that requirement. And as it worked out, I was working with PAC 110 at the same time I was working with him, so I was able to fit the 2 of them together, and he was able to present to them a experiment that they were able to perform. So it helped them and it helped him at the same time. And his performance super gliders, I think I have on the next page how far they went. I'll see if I can see it on the chart there. And he had to build those all himself. And the last thing he has to do is to research a scientific, engineering, technical math breakthrough in the last 100 years. And he's working on that right now. I'm following along as he's writing his essay. So this is the requirement for the high performance paper gliders. And this is where the mentoring role kind of comes in, because there are a lot of different designs out there for paper gliders. And we had to find one that was not horribly complicated, but not too simple. Something that was kind of a middle of the road design that would be that he could make repeatable, because he had to make 6 of these so that he could test some different characteristics. So we found a pattern. We did some research together online, and we found a pattern that we thought would work. And he built them, and they turned out, I thought, really nice. And let's see. Yeah, his distance measured in inches. Let's see. I think his longest flight, it looks like, was about 336 inches. So pretty decent. And you can see what he chose to vary. He has to vary something in the design of each of the gliders. And he chose to look at the length of the wings and see how that affected the flight distance and the stability and the overall ability of the planes to fly. So that's what he is doing here. And you can see 4 of the 6 planes, and he's demonstrating how much he is taking off the wings for each of the 6 planes. And again, you can see the difference in the level of difficulty between the Webelos and the Cub Scout and the Scouts BSA. He's gone to a lot more work here than what was involved for the other kids. And this is the other part of requirement 4, to do energy technology. He chose to research about nuclear energy, and we found a really very interesting video tour about a nuclear power plant that he watched. And once he finished that, then he has to do a write-up on what he learned, which is contained here on this page. And he also has to do a write-up to explain what the effect is on the environment, the natural resources, and our economy of nuclear energy, and whether the current methods that they're using for nuclear energy are sustainable on the long term. And I've got yellow marks on his paper. He's still working on getting that finished. There were some comments he made that I questioned. So he's still working on getting that together and having comments that are what I would call acceptable. So, and he's learning a lot in the process about nuclear waste disposal and different types of nuclear power plants. So it's a great thing for him. And this is the final requirement that he's working on now. He's also writing a 1,500-word essay, and the technology he chose to write about was 3D printing. And the essay isn't quite finished, but what he's got so far looks pretty interesting. So I'm getting close to running out of my time. So anyway, this is the conclusion chart. As I said, each level of scouting has its own Nova and Supernova awards with requirements that are age appropriate. They're made to keep the interest and to challenge the scouts of each age group. And I think they do a really good job of fitting it to the age group and making it appropriate. The Nova and Supernova awards are full of great possibilities for den meetings, for troop and venture meetings, and individual exploration. Like I said, we've done it as a patrol with my son's troop. I did it with my Webelos and with the Wolves, and these also Pack 110 and my Scout and Troop 201 have had a great time working on it on their own. So I hope this introduction has inspired you to dig deeper into the Nova and Supernova programs and to learn more about STEM, the STEM program yourselves. And thank you for coming, and thank you for listening to my presentation.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Shelley?
Somebody asked what troop I'm associated with. I'm with Troop 170 and Troop 2163. They're both in the Coyote Creek district. And if you have any feedback for me as to what you think I should have talked more about or less about, I'd be very interested in knowing your feedback. And I can put my email in the chat if you want to send me a message offline and say, hey, I thought you talked too much about this, or I'd like to have heard more about something else.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, you have your email there in case anybody thinks of anything later that they want to comment on.
Yeah, yes, if you have comments or questions for me, feel free to send me an email.
I thought it was interesting, and it looks like you've had some really fun STEM experiences with your scouts. Some of those are actually pretty advanced.
Yeah, the scout in Troop 201, I've been impressed with all of the things that he's been learning. The Scouts BSA Supernova is very challenging.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it's not an easy award to win or to earn.
No, if he gets his Edison award, he will have definitely earned it. I think it's pretty unusual for the Scouts to pursue it that far.
Yeah, yeah. I would venture to guess that not very many of those have been awarded nationally.
And I guess the top one is the Einstein, and that's where he's eventually going to go. But even the Edison one, I'm sure, is very unusual because of the amount of effort it takes to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not hearing any questions. I guess everybody is either asleep or happy. And somebody was asking, they're thinking to take the training to be a counselor, but they have no STEM type experience. And for as a counselor to work on the Nova Awards, the most important thing is your time and your enthusiasm. Those are the most important things you can bring to the STEM program. If you have both of those, that's what's important. For the mentor role, if you don't have STEM experience, you might want to team with another parent or person in your pack or troop. But to be a counselor, definitely enthusiasm and time is what you need. Yes, and definitely both.
Okay, sounds like everybody's happy.
Well, either that or they're asleep on us. So they're very quiet. It's late on a Friday night. I'm sure it's been a long week for everybody. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we'll bring some STEM to your own packs and troops.
Great. Thank you very much, Shelley.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here with me.
You're welcome.
And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Okay. All right. So you can go ahead and click that end meeting for all, and that'll free up the channel for anybody else later.
Okay.
Again,
thank you so much. Thank you so much for helping me.
You bet. And I sent you, when you get to your email, I sent you a picture of that Council Court of Honor, also the one that's in Bosniak. So just for your interest. So I looked that up while we were here. So
yeah, I would love to see that.
Great.
So yeah,
it was fun for my sons. So they
what a wonderful opportunity. That's a very rare and special thing. They were very fortunate.
Yeah, it was great. So okay, great.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
thank you. And I'm gone then.